Hey guys, it's KJ48. It's June 10th, 2013, and I just got done watching the Microsoft press conference in E3, and I wanted to do a video on it, so let's get to it. The first thing they showed was an opening cinematic for the new Metal Gear Solid 5. Obviously, it's going to be for Xbox. It's an open world game, which sounds pretty cool. Game looks amazing. It looks very realistic. Tons of stealth, over the top, stuff. Kind of cheesy, but in a good way. It's way too much like a movie for me. I can't get into the Metal Gear Solid games, but if you're into Metal Gear Solid, I think you guys are gonna really like this. It looks really really cool. The next thing they were talking about was the Xbox 360 stuff. I wasn't really caring about this stuff, but some of it was pretty interesting. They're coming out with a new Xbox 360 design. They didn't give a price drop or anything, which is like, if you're not going to give a price drop, whatever, who really cares? They were also talking about how live members will get 2 free games between July 1st and when the Xbox One comes out, which I'll get to later. They have a choice of 2 free games, and they get to keep them no matter what. With 2 games they were talking about was Assassin's Creed 2 and Halo 3. I mean, these are games you could get for $10, $20 anyway on some sites, online or whatever, so Amazon and stuff. So not really a big deal there, but then they announced World of Tanks for an Xbox exclusive. I never heard of it, but my friend was telling me it's a free-to-play game, so I don't know how they're going to put a free-to-play game on Xbox. Microsoft's not going to give anything away for free, so they're going to put a free-to-play game on there, and they're going to want you to pay for it, I guess. Then they announced Dark Souls 2. I love Dark Souls. Dark Souls 2 looked really cool. That was it for the Xbox 360 stuff. By the way, if I sound like I'm doing this a little fast, it's because I already did this freaking video. I did this for like 15 minutes, and my webcam was screwed up, so I got to do it again. I'm not happy about that. I just went on Amazon and ordered a new webcam, so I'm not going to have to deal with this piece of crap for much longer. All right, back to the conference. All right, Xbox One. Now they start getting into the Xbox One stuff. They showed this game called Rise, Son of Rome. Rise, R-Y-S-E. Son of Rome. It looked really cool. It reminded me a little bit of God of War. Like in the beginning, they showed this Roman dude just fighting one-on-one, and it reminded me a lot of God of War. A little bit heavy on the QuickTime stuff. I don't like QuickTime events, but it actually looked pretty decent. It reminded me a lot of God of War, and I'm kind of like God of War. I've never really played them much, but I've always wanted to. They look pretty cool, and this reminded me a lot of it. Then they got into this point where they got into like this formation. It reminded me a lot of 300. Like they got into this like phalanx formation, and they were just like had all the shields and like they were just jabbing out their spears. It looked pretty cool. Rise, Son of Rome looked pretty decent. Then they showed Killer Instinct. I'm not a huge fan of Killer Instinct. I've never liked it, but a lot of people out there do, and there's going to be a lot of people excited about that. Killer Instinct. By the way, this is my first being on video in a long time, and I'm a little nervous, so bear with me. Then they showed a game called Sunset Overdrive, which is like a cartoony open world shooter. It was very silly, very over the top. My wife was actually quite excited about that game. She's like, "Oh, did you see that game Sunset Overdrive?" And I was like, I don't know, not my thing, but they look pretty cool. Then they showed some car commercial. I'm all confused. I'm like, what's with this car commercial? I'm like, oh, it's Forza 5. All about graphics and how cool and realistic everything looked. And it did look really cool. I don't give a rat's ass about racing games. If you like Forza, you're going to get Forza 5. You're going to be jacked for it. If you don't care about Forza like me, you're not going to care about it. It looked good. I will give it that. It looked impressive. As a matter of fact, all these games looked impressive. Next generation, it looks really good. So, and then they started talking about indie games. Okay, and they started talking about how like Microsoft is going to really help out indie publishers or indie games and stuff, but I don't see that as the case. They've been a little bit anti-indie, for next generation. Like I was listening to this podcast, and this one dude was saying how Microsoft is going to not let indie developers self-publish anymore, which basically when a developer wants to publish a game, they usually go out to publishers and shop the game around, and a publisher will publish their game and distribute it for a cut. A lot of indie developers just publish their own games because it's easier, especially I guess if it's on a download service. I don't know what the hell the publisher's publishing, but whatever. Microsoft said no more of that. It has to be published. It can't be self-published. That's not very indie friendly. I don't know what they're talking about. They were talking about a lot of my indie game stuff, and they were talking about Minecraft coming to Xbox One, which I thought was kind of weird because it's a known fact that Xbox One is not going to be backwards compatible. You are not going to be able to play your old Xbox 360 games on there, and more importantly, you're not going to be able to play your Xbox Live games on there. All that money you spent on Xbox Live, poof. All right, you can still play it on your 360, but once your 360 goes, those games are done. You can't play them anymore. And so if you bought Minecraft on the 360, oh, it's coming out for the Xbox One. Buy it again? I don't know. That seems kind of weird to me. I wouldn't think they would let you carry it over because they're not letting you carry over other stuff. So that was kind of weird. Quantum Break. It was like a TV show / game, and it looked pretty generic and stupid, but they had this one cool part where there was like this scene, it was like frozen in time, where this like explosion was there and this lady's like falling back from the explosion and it was frozen. And then this guy walks in with this other person, and they walk in and they're like walking around and looking and talking about it. Now they're walking around normal time, and the explosion with the lady in the explosion is just frozen. So the guy touches the lady's arm, and then she kind of comes to life and falls out of the explosion. She's okay, And I was like, wow, this looks pretty interesting. Nothing I'd probably play or care about, but that part looked cool. It at least looked interesting. And then at the end, the explosion started like pulsating or something, and the guy's like, oh, it's the thing's breaking down. I guess whatever was stopping time was breaking down, and they had to get out of there, and the explosion blew up and stuff. So, whatever. Then there was this other game called D4. It looked like a cel-shaded game. They really didn't show much of it. I don't really know what it was all about. They had this Project Spark game, which looked kind of like a build-your-own-town game. They were talking about a lot with the Kinect and with the SmartGlass and the cloud. They were talking a lot about that stuff, about everything, and I'm going to talk about that later. But, it just looked like they built their own city, kind of like a little bit of RTS, and then like monsters invaded and they had to fight them off. It looked pretty interesting. Reminded me a lot of Keflings, which was a game for the 360. So they were talking a lot about SmartGlass. The SmartGlass stuff kind of confused me, and because I didn't really care. It looked a little bit like the Wii U gamepad, and like they were doing certain things. Like this one lady was playing something while she was waiting for another game to queue up on her, like she was waiting for a multiplayer game in a queue or something, and she was playing another game while she was waiting. I don't know. I didn't care. The one thing that's cool about the SmartGlass is it has if you have one, somehow you're going to be able to stream stuff to Twitch automatically. It's going to have a built-in Twitch app or something. That sounds pretty interesting. That could be cool. Microsoft points are going to be transferred to real money. No more Microsoft points. It's going to be real money. 1,000 friends on your friends list instead of the 100. And live can be shared by your family members even when you're not logged in. I don't know what that means. I don't know how they decide who's your family member, but that's what they said. All right, so here's another game. I was really excited about Rise, and I was really excited about this other game, Dead Rising 3. It looked really cool. It looked like it had destructible environments. Like there was this one point where the guy was like standing there, and like all these zombies like broke down this fence and fell through the fence. And the game has a lot of zombies. My God, it had a lot of zombies. And I'll say it again: all these games, and this game's no exception, looked really good. Yeah, open world zombie game, some destructible environments. I'm not sure how many there will be. It seems you can go into buildings. Probably not all the buildings, but who knows? I mean. The guy went into a couple different buildings, which was pretty cool. Like in Grand Theft Auto, it always bothered me in the Grand Theft Auto 3 games where you couldn't go into buildings and stuff. In this game, it looked like you could go into buildings, although I'm pretty sure a lot of them will be locked. Had like gun combinations, lots of guns. He duct taped a flashlight on a pistol, and that was like a gun combination he did. Hundreds of weapons, Dead Rising. It looked really good though. He got in his car, and he's driving through like 100 zombies at a time, and then one zombie jumps up on like a side door, and hold on, okay, webcam. Anyway, he jumps on the side door, and he's like trying to pull the guy out, and the guy had a QuickTime event, and he hit the QuickTime event, and the zombie fell off or whatever. It was pretty cool. It looked good. I'm kind of excited about that game. Am I gonna buy an Xbox One for it? We'll get to that at the end. All right. We'll talk about more about SmartGlass stuff. The Witcher 3. The Witcher 3 looks really cool. I'm kind of excited about that. Probably play it on PC if I can. Battlefield 4, they were talking about the Frostbite engine. They failed on the presentation. The guy was like trying to bring up the presentation on the screen behind him, and it wouldn't work. It was pretty funny. Then he said something really interesting for Oh, I'm sorry. This was for The Witcher 3, actually. The one thing they were talking about The Witcher 3 that I found really funny was DirectX 9. They said they said something to the effect of, we're going to be running The Witcher 3 with next gen graphics, utilizing DirectX 9. I'm like, DirectX 9, dude? I've been using DirectX 10, and 11's been out forever. DirectX 9? Really? Next gen? I don't know, it kind of says something about consoles at that point, but anyway, games look great. I mean, I'm not saying they didn't, but DirectX 9. Anyway, back to Battlefield 4. Just it looked like a generic FPS. I mean, it didn't look like anything special. It looked good, but I didn't like see anything that's, making a big deal. And this console's already got too many FPS. Anyway, another thing is they announced a map pack. They just announced the game, and they're announcing their first map pack will be, I don't know, Xbox exclusive or something, like, whatever. Yeah, they show a lot of Xbox exclusives that they didn't really show much of it. Like, there was a couple games where they'd show like a minute of footage. It wasn't even gameplay. It was like something, like some kind of cinematic thing. I didn't even bother writing down the names because they didn't show anything. It wasn't a big deal. It showed a bit of the new Halo. They showed like this thing where this Jedi-looking guy is walking in the sand, and all of a sudden he pulls down his hood, and he's Master Chief. They were talking about the new Halo, and they were talking about how like it's going to be the first Halo to run at 60 frames per second, which I find very, very funny. The first Halo to run at 60 frames per second, that's kind of a travesty. Yeah, all your FPS should run at 60 frames per second. I couldn't imagine playing an FPS that didn't. Then they announced something else, but I'm going to go down to the last thing here just because I want to talk about their big reveal, as far as I'm concerned, last. So I'm going a little bit out of order here. They showed this game Titanfall, which was kind of like it looked like a generic first-person shooter. It looked like Call of Duty. But then the dude calls down a mech that falls out of the sky, and he jumps in it, and he starts running around in this mech. And it wasn't like slow and lumbering like you would think of a mech. It drops down, he gets in his mech, and it was running really fast. It was really cool. It was fast. He was sprinting with it. It looked pretty interesting. Again, is it going to cause me to get an Xbox One? Well, Rise, Son of Rome, Dead Rising 3, and to a lesser extent Titanfall, all would get me to get an Xbox One if it wasn't $500 at launch. $500, it's coming out in November, and it's going to be $500. What a travesty. Part of the reason that system is going to be $500 is because they're forcing Kinect down your throat, okay? That is BS. They are forcing Kinect in there, something that nobody wants, all right? And they're charging $500 because of that, because that Kinect is expensive. The old Kinect launched at $150, okay? And this new one is 10 times more powerful. You don't think that Kinect's expensive? It's very expensive. And part of the reason the Xbox One is going to be $500 is because of Kinect. And that pisses me off. All right? They didn't talk about any of this stuff, but the console's got to be online every 24 hours or you can't play it. Supposedly, you can't sell used games or buy used games, and if you can, everybody's got their hands in the pie. Well, not everybody, but the developers, and more importantly, GameStop and the developers are going to have their hands in your pie, in your money. All right, I'm not happy about that. And $500. I'm not getting an Xbox One. I don't know if I'll ever get one, but those three things really, really piss me off. I'm not happy about it, and some of these games are pretty impressive, and I do like them. They didn't have like the typical Xbox exclusives. Like, they showed a very little bit of Halo. They didn't show anything about Gears of War. They did show Forza. But Rise and Dead Rising 3 were awesome, but I can't get one. I can't justify it. I just can't do it. $500 and the used game thing and the always online. The used game thing and the always online don't affect me as much as some other people, but it's more of a principle thing. I don't want to support this. And if the PlayStation 3 has it, I don't know if I'm getting a PlayStation 4 either. So, all right. Well, the one last thing I want to talk about here is everyone is saying, all these people, all these developers who are talking about their games, are talking about the cloud and SmartGlass. Now, SmartGlass, whatever, that's like a separate thing. But I'm going to talk about the cloud. The cloud is going to be a way for Microsoft to deal with some of these games. They're trying to lock you into the cloud. They want you to rely on the cloud. And the reason they want you to rely on the cloud is because the cloud's going to cost live. It's going to cost you at least $60 a year if they don't raise the price. Okay, so they're trying to lock you into that cloud. They want you to rely on the cloud because they need you. They want you to pay for that live membership every year. I'm not doing it. If you guys are excited about this stuff, that's great. I hope you have fun with your Xbox One, but I don't know if I'm ever going to get one, and if I do, it won't be anytime soon. So I'm going to watch the PlayStation 4 conference tonight, and then I'm going to do a video for that tomorrow. So hope you enjoyed this, guys, and I'll talk to you later.